Hello everyone, my name is Sriram and today I'm excited to present the Plagiarism Singularity Conjecture, a paper that I co-authored with Dr. Ruimav, Professor Eric Cambria and Professor Anupam Chattopadhyay from the Nanyang Technological University. So in this paper, we explore the idea that with the rise of large language models, we could soon reach a point where most possible text in a given language has already been generated. So this could lead to what we're calling as the plagiarism singularity, and let's explore how this could happen. So let's start with a classic idea, the infinite monkey scenario. This was first proposed by the French mathematician Emile Borel in 1913. That was more than 100 years ago. So he suggested that if a large number of monkeys typed randomly on typewriters for a large amount of time, for a very long amount of time, then there's a non-zero probability that one of them would eventually produce a play by Shakespeare or even any other meaningful piece of text. The problem is that the probability is so small that it is practically impossible for the scenario to actually happen. What happens if we replace the monkeys with large language models? So unlike monkeys, LLMs don't type randomly. They generate text that is based on patterns learned from enormous data sets. So the probability of meaningful text emerging is much, much higher. So what if, over time, LLMs could generate every possible meaningful text in a given language? That's where the idea of the plagiarism singularity comes in. LLMs, on one side, they've revolutionized content creation, but they're also being misused for automation at an unprecedented scale. So we've already seen LLMs being used to write news articles, generate blogs, and how-to guides, and even produce full-fledged research papers. So content creation is not just being accelerated with LLMs. In some cases, it's being completely automated. So this means that the amount of content that is being generated is increasing exponentially, and it raises serious concerns about content saturation and originality. So if the rate of content generation continues to grow, we could soon reach a point where any new content or most new content will resemble existing content to such a degree that most of it will be flagged as plagiarized. So in this paper, we propose that we are approaching this point where most possible text combinations in a particular language will have already been generated. So we define this plagiarism singularity using three broad assumptions. One is that a plagiarism detection tool that is powerful enough to we have a plagiarism detection tool that is powerful enough to cover an arbitrarily large corpus of data within a reasonable amount of time. And number two, we have sentence level exact matching as the definition of plagiarism. And number three, we have a language model that assigns correct probabilities to the occurrence of sentences. So based on this, we've made our arguments based on this, and once we reach the singularity, most new generated text would be marked as plagiarized. So not because it was copied intentionally, but it coincidentally matches with the existing content because of the sheer size of the content space. So the coupon collectors problem is a standard problem in probability, and it asks, if you have a set of coupons with different probabilities of being drawn, how many draws would you need to collect all the coupons at least once? So we model the problem of estimating the plagiarism singularity using the coupon collectors problem. So here's how we approached it. First, we calculated the probability distribution of sentences in the English language using a data set of 500,000 sentences from Wikipedia and the GPT-2 language model. Now from this probability distribution, we extrapolated to estimate the probability distribution of all the possible sentences in the English language. Now from there, we use the coupon collectors framework, and we estimate how many sentences we would need to reach certain plagiarism thresholds, say 20%, 40%, or even 90% of similarity. In simpler terms, we calculated how long it would take for LLMs, in terms of the number of sentences, to write everything in a given language. And the results, they're striking. So, based on the estimates of the number of web pages and sentences available online, we calculated that so the number of web pages is around 3000 trillion, 3 quintillion, and then we have around 30 sentences on average per page. So the total number of sentences online is 9 into 10 power 16. And earlier, in the pre-LLM era, content growth rate was around 40% annually. So if we assume that LLMs are boosting this to 100% per year, we would reach the 20% plagiarism limit in just about 40 years. So in 40 years, we would reach 20% plagiarism similarity. That would need us to generate 10 power 30 sentences. And in a few more years, we would reach 40% similarity with 10 power 39 sentences. And as we keep generating more and more sentences, we will quickly reach even 90% similarity. There are now reaching these higher thresholds, which would require extremely obscene amounts of data and storage, much beyond what's physically possible on Earth. But the lower limits, they seem to be within reasonable constraints. So at this point of time, it becomes important to highlight the limitations of our work, because we want to be clear about what the paper says, what it claims, and what it does not claim. So there are two kinds of limitations. One that prevent us from giving a better upper bound for our estimates of the plagiarism singularity, and one that prevent the singularity altogether. So the first kind, there are important limitations to this analysis. First one is the definition of plagiarism that we've chosen. So we used sentence level exact matching as a criterion, but more sophisticated plagiarism detection methods might show that we are closer to the singularity than estimated. Second one, we've assumed that the model assigns zero probability to random strings, which could slightly inflate the estimates, but in reality the model that we've used, GPT-2 or any other model as well, it assigns a very small but non-zero probability to completely random strings, but the total amount of probability mass that is assigned to all random strings altogether, that is a very limited quantity. Number three, the GPT-2 model that we used, like most popular models, use byte pair encoding. So this tokenization method, it causes us to underestimate the actual sentence probabilities. Now these are the factors that affect the upper bound, but there are also practical constraints to this plagiarism singularity. So one is that growth rates of content generation may not be sustainable forever. So we may slow down due to storage and computational limits. Additionally, search engines like Google, they have limits on how much content that they can index. So right now, according to our estimates of Google's search index size as well as the amount of content on the internet, we believe that the amount of index content is 10 power 4 times smaller than the amount of content on the internet. Also, the size of the index need not grow as the amount of content on the internet does. So this could be a severe limiting factor, and a good one that helps us stay away from the plagiarism singularity. But the most important one is, as language itself evolves over time, the probability distribution of the sentences in the language might keep shifting. So it could happen that all the sentences which have extremely low probabilities today might be the most popular ones 10 years down the line or 40 years down the line. So if this keeps happening, we might never reach the plagiarism singularity at all. So in conclusion, what does this mean for the future of originality? If current trends continue, we could reach a 20% plagiarism threshold in just 40 years, meaning that 1 in 5 sentences would definitely resemble something that is already written on average. So this raises some very deep questions about originality, creativity, and copyright in the age of AI. How will we define plagiarism when most possible sentences have already been written? So this is not just a theoretical idea, it's a potential reality that could reshape how we could think about content and creativity in the AI era. Thank you for watching this video.